Exiting the Middle Ages in the Russian lands was a challenging process. Constant wars over lands, starvation of people, and instability across all social groups led to significant concerns. It was during this time that Ivan the Terrible became the Grand Prince of Moscow and all Rus, and later the first tsar of the Moscow kingdom. His authoritarian and tyrannical style of rule certainly matched his nickname. Though many legends circulate about Ivan the Terrible, not supported by historical facts, his campaign against Novgorod is recorded in history as one of the most brutal and merciless battles of a ruler against his own people. The Novgorod massacre occurred in January 1570. Several months before this, Ivan the Terrible effectively executed the Prince of Novgorod, suspecting him of treason. Rumors reached the Tsar that Vladimir Staritsky, who was then the Prince of Novgorod and a significant political figure in the kingdom, intended to ally with the Lithuanians and basically hand over part of the kingdom's lands to the control of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In October 1569, Ivan the Terrible summoned the Prince of Novgorod for a conversation and casually suggested that he take poison to end this misunderstanding. Surprisingly, Prince Staritsky did not oppose the Tsar's decision. At least this is how classical Russian history recounts the events. However, the assassination of the prince only worsened the separatist movement in Novgorod, where many of the Moscow kingdom's elite resided. Novgorod was a highly influential region with strong military support. This has long been a source of tension for the Tsar, constantly threatening his power. To eliminate the Novgorod elite, all that was needed was a pretext, and in 1569 this pretext was found. An alcoholic called Peter, serving time in the Novgorod prison, supposedly intercepted a secret message and wrote a denunciation against Prince Staritsky. In this report, Peter claimed that the Novgorod elite planned to overthrow the Moscow Tsar, install Prince Staritsky on the throne, and hand over Novgorod and Pskov to either the Poles or the Lithuanians. The logic of such a denunciation was absurd, as it accused the Novgorod elite of two completely contradictory intentions: handing over lands to the Lithuanians while also planning to seat the Novgorod prince on the Moscow throne. However, in Russia such pretexts were always sufficient for dealing with the Tsar's enemies. In January 1570 the Tsar's army approached Novgorod and blocked the city. Within a week the Tsar himself arrived, personally overseeing the execution of each member of the elite who had fallen out of his favor. As expected, the number of Novgorod citizens killed was not recorded. Historians vary in their assessment of the consequences of the Moscow army's raid on Novgorod. The closer a historian is to the propaganda machine, the fewer victims they tend to count in the massacre. Figures of 2,000 to 3,000 victims are increasingly mentioned in official sources, but more independent historians believe that over 15,000 people were ruthlessly killed during those dark days. The total population of Novgorod at the start of the massacre is estimated to have been around 30,000 people. It's hard to imagine the cruelty of the Moscow army, which annihilated half of the city's inhabitants, while the other half was doomed to death from starvation, cold and diseases, which became inevitable consequences of such a massacre. As the Moscow army withdrew from Novgorod, they also looted and destroyed all the city's food supplies, adding to this the fact that the region was ravaged by a plague epidemic. It can be assumed that by the end of 1570, no more than 10 to 15% of Novgorod's population managed to survive. Of course, the denunciation by the alcoholic Peter was fabricated, and the primary goal of Ivan the Terrible's Moscow army's campaign against Novgorod was precisely to crush a powerful rival of Moscow. This massacre served as a warning to other Russian lands about what awaited them for disobedience to the Moscow Tsar. Historians believe that the destruction of Novgorod laid the foundation for the unification of the Russian lands under Moscow's rule and effectively marked the beginning of the totalitarian Moscow Kingdom.